Like rubber chips?
Just mulch.
Big mud pie. It's funny.
I think just, I think just mulch.
I was just driving around.
Mulch right now.
Another camera is up here.
Funny for,
Not a deer, just your dad.
I had a nice surface I put.
Yeah.
I have a nice surface that we put down the playground I just built down there. We poured the concrete around, and then I poured a rim, formed up like a step rim where the thickness of the pad, the thickness of the surface, and poured that all underneath. And then you put all that together. Then you take power caulk down.
Good evening.
How you doing?
Had glue in
I'm
it.
oblivious.
And then had spreaders on one side, and then let the glue in, and then the rubber sealed up right behind it. Yeah, and you did every seam
Go ahead, Sherry.
Regular meeting of Washington, Missouri City Council, Monday, March 20th, 2023, 7 p.m. Bear,
Here.
Briggs,
Here.
Coulter,
Here.
Hydrich, Holtmeyer,
Here.
Patke,
Here.
Reed,
Here.
Wessels.
Here.
Need a motion.
Make a motion.
Not yet.
Not yet. Make a motion.
Approval of the minutes from the March 6, 2023 council meetings.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Holmeyer, second by Coulter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It passes.
Approval and adjustment of agenda, including consent agenda. You have the collector's report summary for October 2022, investment report summary, October 2022, change order number 1, 2023 cast in place pipe project, final payment request, interior and exterior painting of Clay Street and Enduro water storage tanks, final payment request, Washington Freight Depot renovations, liquor license approval, TLRR Entertainment, LLC, doing business as 1861 Social House Eatery and Bar.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Holmeyer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Priority items, mayor's presentations, appointments, and reappointments, recognition of Sergeant Joe Kapuska and Lieutenant Joe Rankemeyer for the Police Leadership and Command Preparatory Academy.
Okay. Hey guys, anytime any of our employees can better themselves by taking a course, getting an advanced degree, I think that's time for celebration for all of us as councilmen, staff, and citizens. It makes us a better town and a police force when you guys do stuff like this. So, thank you. Okay, Joe Kaputska, congratulations, sir. Thank you, sir. Here's your certificate. And Joe, Eastern Missouri Police Academy, same thing. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
City physician reappointment.
Good evening, Council. It's my pleasure to announce that Dr. Ann Elizabeth Mohart has agreed to serve another term. She was invaluable during the beginnings and actually all the way through COVID, trying to work through with our employees and the ever-changing CDC rules and trying to come up with a fair and equitable way of keeping everyone safe and healthy with all the different working classes that we have, people working inside, people working outside, people working together, people working apart. So she's invaluable for that. And also she has a soft spot in her heart for emergency service workers and has taken special interest in any who have any health problems and need a little bit of special counseling to negotiate through those little minefields. So I present to you Dr. Mohart.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Holtmeyer, second by Patke. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Welcome back, Dr. Mohart.
Urban Forestry Council reappointment.
Sure. I have a letter here. Dear council members, I herewith submit for your approval the following reappointment to the Urban Forestry Council. John Steffens, term ending March 2026. John, are you here tonight?
You don't need, I don't think he's here.
Close enough, yes. Ted.
Close enough.
Tell your husband.
Good answer.
Congratulations. I guess we need an official vote on this.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So move.
Motion by Wessels,
I'll second it.
second by Coulter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Please tell him, Tess. Thank you.
Now you can tell him.
Our favorite tree hug.
Public hearings, zoning code amendment, noise levels.
Yeah, there's a presentation. Good evening, council. Tonight, not for a vote, but just for a public hearing to satisfy the requirements of our zoning code amendment requirements. We are presenting to you the recommendations to changes to our noise ordinance in Chapter 400 of the zoning code. As you are, I'm sure, aware, last October, I think is when it began, we discussed some possible changes to our noise ordinance. It doesn't happen very often, but we did receive some complaints about some possible noise violations for one property, and we realized at that time, it was the first time we had complaints, and since we had our new code adopted in 2017, we did not have the equipment in place to actually review those, review any complaints, and realized that when our consultants put together our noise ordinance back in 2017, that it's probably more complicated and difficult to enforce than it needs to be. And so city staff, we looked at what other communities do, and we looked at best ways to describe and read what different and what is considered a nuisance and different decibels. And so currently on the screen in front of you and up here, this is what it looks like in our current code. You can see here we have this octave band, cycles per second, and then it talks about the dwelling districts and business districts, and it changes, from so many cycles per second in an octave band up. And so you'd have to have a very expensive piece of equipment to realize what octave band the officer would have to do this in the moment, what octave band they're in, and then review the dwelling district or business district and come back with that. And so we realized that that's probably more complicated than it needs to be. And so what we are proposing to change, and again, this is a public hearing, we'll bring this back as an official zoning ordinance change at your next meeting. But to simplify this, to have a receiving zoning category, so the actual zoning district that the property of the complaint is coming from, and a sound limit and straight up decibels, dBA, for that receiving zoning category. And this way, if there's a complaint, whatever that property is zoned, that is the category they will have. An officer can go out there with a piece of equipment we already have that is calibrated and read that decibel level and determine at that time if it's an actual zoning violation or noise violation, and issue a ticket if it is. And so you can see here, the lowest is this 65 decibels in residential districts. That's pretty much across the board for residential. The highest you get up is 80 in our commercial, industrial, and specifically for our downtown. And then you can see there's a little fluctuation here. For our planned districts, I'm gonna be honest, we split the middle with 70 here, or a little bit higher than 65, because these planned districts are typically in more transition zones where you have it closer to residential and commercial at the same time. And I just want to show you, this was one of the many typical sound levels we used. I believe actually we found this one from like a Yale study. A Yale study. But the one thing I want to point out, and we looked at this at Planning and Zoning. Planning and Zoning did review this at 2 meetings. This freight train at 100 feet away is 80 decibels, and that's actually kind of the max we chose, given we have a lot of properties that are in proximity to our railway downtown, and we thought if people are willing to live and work within 800 feet of a freight train going by, that could be a good system to kind of set the max. And so that's where we came up with the system and setting our max here. And there were other communities we looked at that had very similar ranges when you got into this more simplified review. One thing I do want to point out before I open it up to the public is that, to be clear, this is not a change that allows businesses to be louder or requires them to be quieter. This really is just a change to simplify it and allow it to be more enforceable for us. And so we think this is the best way to do it. And then as complaints come in, if we realize that there's, if there's a police officer who can give testimony that no, that is louder than it should be, or maybe 65 is not the right sweet spot, I think this is something that is amendable in the future. We think this is a good place to start.
I would just add, we looked at, I believe Wentzville's framework is what this is. And we kind of went off that as being a community that has multiple uses. There's industrial, there's residential. We thought that that'd be a good one to start with. So the framework of what you see there was from Wentzville, if that gives you any kind of feeling. Not that that matters, not that we should do everything Wentzville
Right.
does.
Well, yeah, we looked at other communities as well, so. The only thing we really customized was that 80 as our max, especially in our C3, so. But again, that is if you're within the receiving district. So even if you are right outside the downtown district and you're in an R1A zoning district, your neighbor still has to abide by, even if your neighbor's in the downtown district, you still have to abide by this 65. The receiving category is where you determine how loud sound can be coming from. So I think that's a pretty safe system to start with. And Planning and Zoning did vote unanimously to approve this last week.
I thought we discussed earlier that like 58 was like normal conversation, or 65 now. But I just kind of looked it up really quick myself, and like Chad just said, 80 decibels is what, anything over that, they suggest.
At 80 decibels,
Hearing
you're supposed to
protection.
have hearing protection on.
But I mean, that's also light too. So I thought 65 was very low, but maybe it is the right number, Sal, so.
Yeah. I mean, and that's where we had, I know this isn't exactly apples to apples here, but there were some we currently had lower than that. And so in that octave band, but it's still in decibels here. And so that's where we thought this was a good starting point at that 65. And again, it very well you could have, if there's a circumstance where it's over, something's over 65, but it's actually not a nuisance, I think it can be changed.
I guess my only concern is that those businesses that are already part of downtown, who have had music or whatever for years, is this a detriment or is this a change to them that's going to change something? I know some people who live next door would want something to be quieter. I get that, but we also can't just change the way things have been going here for.
Yeah, and we did discuss that. Currently, I mean, it's hard until you see it in action and actually hear that exact case-by-case scenario, what it sounds like. But we believe that our intention with this is to not limit any existing operations that are going on that we have not received complaints. And one example was the Landing has music outside most weekends when it's nice weather, and we've never gotten complaints that I'm aware of from any of the surrounding properties especially if they've recently moved in. And so that is actually where you get this 80, because the receiving category, anything close enough to Landing to be asking, is within C3. And we think that 80,
Plus, you're
band's
blocks,
louder-
blocks away from residential
right. I
zoning too,
understand.
Yeah.
just so you understand.
if a band's louder than a freight train going by and you're, down the street, I think maybe that is reason to say, hey, turn it down.
I think that's the point, though, is receiving category. That's the whole point. If you're within C3, and we're neighbors next door, you're in that receiving category, right? It's really on the edges is where you start to have issues.
Right, so
that make
if my
sense?
residence is next to C3, it's not
That's-
the residence number, it's the C3 number.
No, it's the resident.
Residence
It
number.
is the
So it
residence.
does go
But if
down
you're in the
on
middle,
the edge,
if you're
right.
in the middle of C3, there,
Isn't it? Like I said,
There's
the
no-
landing outside is not an issue because there's a parking lot in the back and a river on the other side, so it's not an issue
Yeah.
there. I get that. I guess my thing is if you go to, above Sugar Fire where the patio on top, they have music there.
Yep.
We're building condos across the street right now. Is that going to be a detriment there? That's where,
Those are C3 as well.
3.
okay.
Yep.
You don't really, that's why I'm saying, you've got blocks before you get residential zoning.
Okay, it explains a lot. Yeah, I get it.
And I will be the first to say that there could be a situation come where we say, oh, this isn't working, but the mayor and I had this conversation this morning, that it's hard to come up with these until you're actually on a Friday night listening to it from a neighbor's property to see, okay, what is the decibel level that is considered a nuisance? And I think, you know, if we have a property where we have a lot of complaints, I think it's gonna take some reporting back from the officer who's called there.
See, I think it's a good starting point. We
Right.
got
Yeah.
a place to start. If they get complaints, they can do some readings, and if they come back and say, we're constantly getting readings over this and this, we
Our
have
goal is to make it sure it's not objective to officer by officer, what is determined to be a nuisance.
Agree with that too, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the idea would be is that they'd all have devices within their cars that they could go ahead and utilize then on the scene, so.
And I want to, it'll be a calibrated device. There was some question about downloading an app, and we've looked that up. That doesn't qualify. So. 'Cause I think there were some neighbors downloading apps, and that's not something we can submit, so.
It just gives our police some teeth to, something to go by.
Yes,
There's no confusion then.
it's clear.
And then the last thing I would point out, this does not apply to anything that is designated by council as a festival district. Because there are some questions that, well, are you gonna send an officer to the fair board during the fair? Because there are single-family residential districts within earshot. Well, it's a designated festival district, so.
Okay, thanks, Sal.
I'll leave it at the public.
Floor for comments?
Anyone like to comment on the noise ordinance? Yes, please.
You gotta come up to the,
Gotta come up.
Maybe I don't want to talk.
State your name and your address, please.
Pat O'Donnell, Bogey Drive. Did Wentzville have any time that music stops?
There was I don't know it specifically, but there was a time that was actually broke down per zoning district. So it was a little bit different on that, but yes, I don't remember what it was though.
Okay. Simple as that, being a musician, you know, if they shut down at 11, they shut down at 12, they shut down at 1. There's different sounds as far as I'm concerned if I lived anywhere in the area. So that was my question.
I just don't recall what it was sitting here.
Thank you.
This, as you can see here, this is set between 9 PM and 6 AM, which is what we had previously. So,
Oh, so prior to that, it doesn't come into effect?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I apologize, yeah. That was on there
9 to
before.
6.
Yeah, 9 to
Cody?
6, and that was previously there, we just didn't enforce it because we didn't have the equipment.
Other comments, folks? Okay.
I'll make a motion to give it a try into the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Holtmeyer to introduce and accept it to the minutes. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Citizens' comments?
Anyone like to come up?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Vicki Creedy. I live in Ward 1, and I'm here to ask a question and some clarification on the proposed amendment or proposed question on the ballot for the user tax for the marijuana, the 3%. I understand that that was approved and is on the ballot, and all of the citizens of Washington are going to vote for it. As a citizen of Washington, I'd like to know if any thought had been given as to, if that passes, where the money would go, because I believe the citizens would have a better chance of approving it if they had some idea what it was going to be used for, as opposed to just going in a general fund. So I wanted to know if the council had discussed that at all, or if I could possibly, or I will make a recommendation, that at least some consideration be given to give a little bit of extra money to the Parks Department, because the Parks Department covers a lot of area, there's a lot of trails. I know it's a big attraction. I used to work at the hospital for a number of years, and when they would bring professional physicians in, one of the things they would show them was our parks, because it's an appealing park. And it's gotten even bigger now with trails and everything else. And I'm sure money could be used, if a portion of that could be allocated to the Parks Department on a regular basis so they could count on that. As a matter of fact, in the past week, I just received this in my bill, my city bill, which is a little 4-page thing on the city Parks Department and everything they offer. So they're working pretty hard at what they can offer the citizens. So my thought was, is if the council had given any consideration, and if you haven't, would you give some consideration into allocating a portion of the money from the tax to be allocated to the Parks Department? Because I think they keep it up pretty good and everybody expects it to be perfect. And when it's not, I'm sure everybody hears about it. So it would be nice if they could have some extra funds to take care of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki.
Vicki, can I answer your question while you're there?
Yes?
Just as Parks Liaison, we've been discussing this at length for the last few months. Initially, the plan was to include the Parks Department on that tax when it went to the ballot. Our legal counsel has directed us in the position where if it's worded on the ballot that it would go to the Parks Department, that if we ever wanted that to change, we would have to go back to the voters to change that. So it was the council's decision at that time to make it, the wording only go towards the general fund, but that we earmark it towards Parks Department and, at the request of others, dispatching salaries in our dispatching center in order to stay competitive with the county and outlying areas. So in an effort to stay competitive with salaries for dispatching and to add to our parks, the council has agreed in terms to earmark it, not guarantee it, but through the general fund, earmark it to the Parks Department, those extra funds as those become available from the marijuana tax.
I think that's great, and I think the people that go to vote for it might keep that in mind when they vote for it, because it would be something that they could support, as opposed to it just going into the general fund. And so if you all have already contemplated that and sort of earmarked it, because that's the proper way for it to go, then that's great. But that wasn't specified in any of the documentation, nor should you, I guess.
Correct.
That was my point of coming here, was just to throw out the thought and say, if you do it, I know you don't have a clue, I can't imagine you have a clue how much money it's gonna be. So it could be a little, it could be a lot, no one knows, because it's just getting going. And I understand the county's gonna do it too, but if we do it in Washington, then it's ours and we can do with it what we want. And I think that's important that the citizens realize that if they don't, it's gonna go somewhere else. It's gonna happen.
Right.
So we might as well take advantage of it and get it in our coffers and use it for the Parks Department and anything else, with you all certainly having the ability to redirect it if that's necessary.
Well, ironically, as you stand here, there's people who are sitting behind you who are advocates for this exact situation, as we discussed at our last park board meeting, as park board members, Mr. Woolley, Mr. Stuckenschneider, Mrs. Steffens, and others there are all in favor of this as a park board and asking for this. So it is, if none of those have approached you and told you this, it's very ironic that you're here, Ms. Creedy. So, but that being said,
I got this in the mail.
and good for you, and I appreciate your words. Just rest assured that if you understand my explanation earlier, that we can't put it on the ballot to specifically say that, then our hands are tied for any time in the future.
No, but at least the discussion's there, and at least the
Absolutely.
intent is there, if anything else. So at least there's that, and I think that will be of comfort when and if it, passes, and then it can be used appropriately. And then down the road, you can talk about what it went for and how it's going to go there.
And now I need to ask you a favor, if you don't mind.
Yes.
As a council member, I can't promote this and ask people to vote for it, but you as a citizen of Washington can.
Well, that's part of the reason I'm standing here.
So
because I
we would
want
appreciate your support in
you
going
have it,
forward.
and I will support it any way I can.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Other comments? Harvey?
Harvey Mendez, 221 Fair Street. Evening. So I talked to a few councilmen already this past week. I'm with the JC's membership here in town, and you're all aware of the All Abilities Park next to Lions Lake. Nice little gated community for children to come play. So one of the members brought up that they have a 3-year-old daughter who's got some disabilities and stuff like that. And she kind of brought up that it's kind of hard to bring her child there at times, just because, everybody uses the park, You got kids ranging from all ages up to like maybe 12 or 13. And, they can be a little bit rough out there, using language, and stuff like that. So And of course, the Y's up there, and they have their Y camps all the time, and they always bring their children on there, and it just, you know, it makes it a little bit difficult. So what I'm just proposing is not an enforcement, but it's kind of like a recommendation. If we can allocate a time frame, like a 1 hour or 2 hour time frame, you know, for children under 5 or, you know, or with disabilities, you know, to use that park, you know. It's a safe park to use. They have flat, you know, like foam floor, you know, in case they fall or something like that. You know, it's not some of the parks where they have like moats or P-bodies, you know, if they fall, you know, they hurt themselves, you know, and stuff like that. So I'm just asking is there any way we can do something, you know, to just, I'm not asking for a lot, just maybe like an hour time frame. You know, we could put a sign out there, just letting people know, hey, be courteous, you know, children with disabilities, you know, are using the park from this time frame. You're more than welcome to use it, but, you know, just, you know, be courteous and let them, you know, use the park and stuff like that. So, I know I talked to a few councilmen, Councilman Packey and Councilman Bear. Your names got brought up and told me to come talk to you guys a little bit about this. I don't know if you guys, you know, got a suggestion for that?
Well, I'm sure that our names were brought up because we sit with those individuals that we were talking about at the park board's meeting, so we're the liaisons. Interesting idea. I don't know how to put it into effect, and I'm not saying we can or we can't. I guess it's something we have to, I would suggest coming to our meeting, when are we, next Wednesday?
April
No.
12th.
Yeah.
I just looked at
This is
April
the
12th at
second meeting,
5:30 would be the next park board meeting. Be
But in the
perfect time,
meantime,
right here.
Okay,
And we can have that discussion with the park board members and have a little bit more of a, sorry,
Yeah.
Count Bear, but yeah.
okay. So we'll be at that parks meeting where we can discuss a little bit better and maybe, you know, have a little motion going past it.
Or just discuss what could be done, you know, if it's a sign, if it's an hour, you know, what it may be. The parks director there, park board, we can, you know, discuss that. If it's a realistic request, we can go from there.
Thank you for your time.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harvey. Hi, Gavin.
I already gave you your minute.
Speaking of park board.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Gavin Woolley, 1443 Rock Lane. I'm a member of the Washington Parks and Recreation Commission, the Miller Post Advisory Board, and the Urban Forestry Council. I'm not here this evening soliciting another appointment, but to thank you for placing the 3% user tax for recreational marijuana on the ballot, on the April ballot, and also attempt to get this issue before the public to both inform them of its merits and to seek their support. But I would like to solicit the council to earmark a portion of this tax to the Parks Department so that they may continue to provide for the citizens of Washington a first-class Parks and Recreation Department. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thanks, Gavin.
Gavin?
Any other citizens' comments? Okay. Go ahead, Sherry.
Report of department heads, delinquent real estate and personal property taxes as of January 31st, 2023.
Good evening, council. In your packet, you have the delinquent tax list that's provided by Franklin County. And this is a requirement that once per year, since we don't collect our own taxes, that we provide this list to you. So does anybody have any questions?
Disappointing every year, Mary.
Yeah. Why is it so long?
Well, and actually this year, we did have the extension from, for taxes through January 15th.
Right.
So the due date. The taxes, the delinquent taxes were slightly higher this year compared to last year.
And Mary, collection of all these delinquent taxes, that falls back on the county, correct?
Correct.
Right.
We contract with them to go ahead and do the collection on behalf of the city taxes.
Okay.
Mary, I have a question that City of Washington shows up here as
Right.
being delinquent.
That's the item that Darren asked you about. That's the Hancock property that we purchased.
Yeah, but from the time we acquired it, it became tax exempt. So I'm not sure why that's showing up on there.
Right, it's
We
not
asked that
supposed to,
question.
but.
You can
and
ask the county that question, esteemed counselor.
Call
I don't have an answer.
Call their attorney.
That's what Darren had asked, I think, for you to do.
You walked right into that one.
Yeah.
And now, I make a motion that you must bring it up at a commission meeting on tomorrow.
Second.
Okay, motion by Patke, second by Oatmeyer.
What, to bring it up tomorrow morning to the?
You must bring it up at the commission meeting tomorrow.
Marching orders.
I introduced it and Holmeyer seconded.
All right, well, it's a motion now.
All those in favor say
Aye.
Go get them.
Go get.
I don't know if that's a binding resolution or not.
And
Now
you
do
can't
we
charge
just
us
need to
either.
approve the rest of it into the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept into the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Oatmeyer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.
Parks Department?
Sorry, Mary, I just want to make one more comment, and I know this is directed towards the chief. We talk about this all the time about past due license, and if someone's past due on their personal property tax, I just went to the license office today and bought license for my truck and my kid's car. People aren't getting license in their car if they're past due in 2018, in 2019, 2020 on this list. So all those who are not paying their personal property taxes don't have current license on their car. And I guess we've said it, I know it's easier said than done, but rather than be a complaint only, if they're delinquent on their tags, it's a pullover offense.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Chief.
I don't know how many tickets they issue, but I know I see a bunch of them in court.
Yes.
And my standard recommendation to them is, before I'll even talk about it, you gotta get your vehicle registered. Come in with a valid registration, so I know they're paying attention to it.
Perfect, thank you. It just all plays in together what we talked about
I
before,
understand.
so.
Yep.
Thanks.
Parks Department 2023 F-550 truck lease update.
Evening, council. This is just an update on a truck we're trying to purchase, or lease, I should say, through Enterprise. We're trying to replace a 2015 F-550 dump truck with a 2023 F-550 dump truck and snowplow and spreader combo. The price, or the amount I budgeted in the budget was $115,000. Enterprise is saying that this truck will be valued at $134,638.75. However, with Enterprise, we lease the truck. So we do because this truck is more expensive than our normal half-ton or three-quarter-ton trucks that we buy. There is a down payment of $31,977.50, but then our monthly payment will be $2,242.48 on a month, and the lease is 4-year lease. So basically, I budgeted 115, the truck's worth 134, but our lease payments are only $2,242.48. So it'll likely be delayed. I'll likely be budgeting for this next year in the FY24 budget. This last truck we ordered last year took a year to come in, so we just got it. And just with inflation, the snowplow and spreader combo that we just purchased last year has gone up $9,000 from last year to this year. So that's like half the amount that it's
How can he sleep?
over budget, if you will, if you say that. So there's no budget needed at this time. It's just making you aware inflation's eating up a lot of our budget on these things. And we'll likely, the lease is for 4 years. We'll likely keep it longer than that, especially with a truck this expensive. The truck we are replacing it with, it's rusting out from salt. The side beds they're hard to get down and very hard to get back up. We're starting to run into repair costs. And then it's having troubles going into four-wheel drive also. So it's starting to cost us some money.
So I guess that answers the question. Are we getting anything on the old truck?
We'll trade it in, or we could purple wave it. It's our choice. It's the city's choice on what to do. I know street departments had better luck, or they seem to have better luck with Purple Wave than trading in with Enterprise.
Discussion? Okay, accept the motion.
Thank you.
We'll make a motion to accept in the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Patke, second by Hopemar to accept it into the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes.
Ordinances and resolutions. An ordinance authorizing and directing the City of Washington, Missouri to accept the managed services agreement from NOC Technology for IT consulting services.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke.
Okay, also included in your packet is the revised contract agreement with NOC, which is our provider for all of our IT needs. And John with NOC is all the way in the back here. So he's here to answer any specific questions that you might have. And basically, what we have, our contract with NOC automatically renews, but since we had so many changes this year with our cybersecurity policy back in June, we added different layers of protection to help mitigate the breaches in the city's network. So since we made so many changes, we are wanting to go ahead and revise that contract. So what we added was Auto Elevate, Cyber CNS, and ESET EDR. And that increased our monthly charges to approximately $3,000. And then also we switched our Microsoft email-only license to Microsoft 365, which includes Teams and the full suite of Office products, which gives us a perpetual license. And that monthly increase is $4,300. And then we did increase the monthly service amount from $12,000 to $12,500, which is a slight increase of $500. And other than that, that's really the only increase.
If you'll remember when we renewed our insurance policies last summer, the company that we were receiving cyber coverage from no longer in business. We had to go with a different company to go ahead and do so. So these additional software and everything else, this is the stuff that we needed to go ahead so that they felt comfortable with the quote that they were giving us for our policy. So
Is all department heads pretty comfortable with NOC's performance and help and stuff like that? Like for, if computers go down, or do they call you or do they call NOC?
No, they pretty much put a ticket in with NOC.
Okay. Everybody happy with that?
I think for the most part, I mean, I
There's
think
times when it's
sometimes there's different
frustration.
issues and, but I think there would be with any company.
Yeah, oh,
You know, I mean,
I would just add, from my perspective, relative to the entire operation, it's reasonable. I think that there are some things that we could all do to probably improve on the service, specifically just some operations that require a lot of point-of-sale transactions, public to city transactions, those type of things. But they've always seemed pretty responsive, at least to think about those things and work through them. So overall, yes, but I think there's some things that we all could do better. So.
Okay, thanks.
Mary, do I read this right? It looks like last year, our agreement was $12,000 a month. This year it'll be almost $20,000?
well, the base monthly charge is going from $12,000 to $12,500.
And then we're adding on another 73.
Correct. But that's specifically for those items. And those items we didn't have last year. Those are all additional things due to, what they did is they made us go through and answer a bunch of questions and said, okay, well, you need to add this, and you need to have this, and you need to have this.
Who
So
was telling us that?
the insurance
basically
carrier.
the quote for the
In order for us to
got
be
for the
insured.
for the cyber coverage.
I don't know who, I don't know who the carrier is, the new insurance carrier.
I don't remember which one.
It's
it
not
was.
Daniel
a
and
new
Henry,
one.
it's who they
Yeah.
sub it out to.
Correct.
We definitely want coverage because we don't want that to happen.
Right.
What happened?
And overall, it's what, I think we pay like, it's right around 20,000 is all that.
10, I think. You're talking about the policy?
No, for cyber. I think it's closer to 18,000 now
Is it 18?
per year. But I mean, that's still relatively
was
speaking, that is not
And it went up.
very expensive. It did. It used to be like 5,000.
Correct.
At the
But
time
that's
we
still-
were compromised, it was at that $4,000 range, if I remember correctly, and
Right.
we didn't have enough insurance to cover that. So those who maybe weren't on the council at that time, that was a pretty scary time when we were, when, you know, this was all compromised, and then the insurance not there to pay for anything back. So I mean, I know the number going up, Mark, is definitely substantial. There's no doubt about that. But being in a situation a few years ago, it's definitely something we can't do without.
Well, and it's either whether you're paying to prevent something and to mitigate it, or you're
Right.
gonna pay if something happens. So, I mean, you're kind of, you know, I don't really know that you have a choice not to.
Correct.
And you
try to
had
mitigate it.
probably, since that, you probably had 2 or 3 years with that same company at a pretty low premium. But unfortunately for them, that wasn't a good business model for them. That's
Right.
why they're no longer offering coverage.
Thanks, Mayor.
Need to move it on?
Oh, no, it's a ordinance.
Okay, other questions or comments, guys? Go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the City of Washington, Missouri to accept the managed services agreement from NOC Technology for IT consulting services. Coulter?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Bear?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Reed?
Yeah.
Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich.
Aye.
By your vote, the ordinance passes. 7B, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an agreement for the placement of wireless antennas by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Historic Washington Foundation, Inc.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
Okay, council, within your packet, there's a quick description, summary of what we're trying to achieve here. A few months ago, we sat in a department head meeting and discussed the security camera systems that are down on the riverfront and some city facilities, and they were inoperable at times. It was diagnosed back to an antenna that is on the current H tower, familiar with the large tower right there next to the passenger depot. The city acquired that ownership of that tower, I think in 2018 from UP, knowing that it was fairly old and there was a little bit of risk there, but we thought it was our opportunity at least to get acquisition of it and then take it down in the future when that becomes necessary. When that
John,
went-
is that the one by the depot? Is that what you mean by H
Yes.
Tower?
Passenger depot.
Yeah. Just
I can
east
show
of
you
the
a
passenger
photo.
depot.
I got you.
Yeah, the passenger depot, correct. So we put the antenna up on top of that. That antenna is powered by solar. It's got some solar panels that are on it. You can imagine winter months, you know, cloudy days, that just doesn't provide enough power for those antennas. When the power goes out to the antennas, then the security cameras go up. Common sense, right? So that was priority item number one, is how do we solve the camera issue for some security, those type of things. Number two, the antenna, or the H tower itself is like old, like 100+ years old. If you go down there and look right now, the guy wires are, you know, they're not taut. There's some issues with that. So there's some risk there. We own that now. Windstorm comes through, I would hate to see what that would do potentially to the passenger depot or anything else. So there is some risk there that we knew that we're trying to mitigate. So in order to do so, we went to Historic Washington Foundation and asked if we could put a small antenna that would be really no higher than where their lightning rods are on the facade of that building, right next to it. You wouldn't even really notice it. It's about the size of a cell phone. And that would bounce off of the antenna, I believe, here at the Public Safety Building. Then they could feed off of that antenna down to the riverfront, potentially the Freight Depot building, whatever's high that they can get access to. And then that would serve that power supply need to the cameras, so it solves the camera needs. It also provides reliable internet connection for the public Wi-Fi, which was the third part of this. And then that H tower could be removed. So it's a three-prong attack to solve three different issues. And this agreement is with the Historic Washington Foundation to get that first antenna up to solve all those other issues. So security mitigates risk and provides public access to public Wi-Fi down in the park system, or on the riverfront.
Keeps it, maintains it.
Keeps it, maintains it. So it's pretty low cost, and it just makes sense.
On the farmer's market building, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, you didn't say that.
Did I not say that? I apologize. Yeah, the
Understood, I
parapet,
thought,
there's some lightning rods. I could probably show you a photo of it, but there's some short lightning rods. They're about the same height. I would bet you wouldn't even notice.
And
Nice,
this,
nice to get rid of that H tower. That's
Yep,
an eyesore in the first place.
yep.
Thanks.
Further discussion? Okay, go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance authorizing and directing execution of an agreement for the placement of wireless antennas by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Historic Washington Foundation, Inc. Coulter?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Bear?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Reed?
Yes.
Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
By your vote, ordinance 7B is passed. 7C, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a dispatching services agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the City of Berger, Missouri.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke.
Good evening, Council. In your packet, you'll have the ordinance for dispatching services for Berger. It's a one-year agreement with an 8% increase from last year, from 1,750 to 1,890.
Do we have the same agreement with New Haven?
New Haven, we have a 5-year currently.
it's an extended one, and you receive more revenue from them as well.
Yes.
Okay.
This is
Last
just
year-
for this Berger.
Yeah.
Just for Bird, okay.
And I think it's, with them, I think it's probably best, unless they ask us for it, we would just keep going year to year. So,
No further questions? Good. Okay, go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a dispatching service agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the City of Berger, Missouri. Coulter?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Bear?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Reed?
Yes.
Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
By your vote, ordinance 7C passes. 7D, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of agreement for school resource officers by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the School District of Washington for 3 school resource officers to be assigned to duty for the Washington School District.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke.
Good evening, Council. This is our annual agreement with Washington School District, essentially to provide 3 SROs within the district for a 9-month period, and then for 3 months of the year, they're back with the police department. Last year, the payment for 3 was $143,000. I know that Darren did meet with district administration and decided that they agreed upon an 8% increase, so that brings it to $154,000 for this year. Payment to the city for those 3 officers.
Chief, will you tell us again where the 3 are assigned?
Yeah, we have 1 at the high school, 1 at the middle school, and then 1 roves amongst all the elementary schools.
All schools?
Yep.
Okay, no further questions. Go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of agreement for school resource officers by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the School District of Washington for 3 school resource officers to be assigned to duty for the Washington School District. Coulter?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Bear?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Reed?
Yes.
Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
By your vote, ordinance 7D is approved. 7E, please.
An ordinance amending the provisions of Title III Traffic Code Schedule 13 of the Washington City Code by repealing provisions for a loading and unloading zone at the location described below.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
Okay, Council, this is to remove a loading zone behind Emmanuel Lutheran, the old Fifth Street School. There's an old school loading zone that doesn't exist anymore, so it would remove that from the code and clean that up. Just a cleanup item.
Okay, go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance amending the provisions of Title III Traffic Code, Schedule 13 of the Washington City Code by repealing provisions for a loading and unloading zone at the location described below. Coulter?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Bayer?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Reed?
Yes.
Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich.
Aye.
By your vote, ordinance 7E passes. 7F, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the City of Washington, Missouri to accept the contractor agreement from Clay Camp Lawn and Landscape LLC for grounds maintenance services.
Patke.
Introduced by Pat.
Evening, council. This, in your packet, you'll find information about grounds maintenance services that we went out to bid for. Recently, we had Clay Camp as our contractor. That contract expired. We bid out, and we had two bidders, and you can see the bids there. We had Clay Camp come in at $57,420, and Hoffman, Hillerman Nursery and Florist come in at $74,100. It's a 3-year contract with 2 option years. So it'll be for 23, 24, 25, and then option years of 26, 27. On the contract was 16 properties. I attached in your packet a document showing which properties and then how much land is, or how much grass is mowed under the contract, and then what the Parks Department mows. So you can see on the contract for the fire department, there's 5.79 acres, and then for parks / water department, 28.55, or I'm sorry, 22.76 would be for parks. And then in addition to that, we mow, my staff or crew mows 140 acres of parkland. And so this document, it's not acres of land, it's actual acres of grass mowed. So that's what we're mowing in all the parks. So we're looking for your approval to go out to accept the bid with Clay Camp for the next 3 years with the option years. Does anyone have any questions?
I did, just for clarification, I talked with Wayne before they put this out. There was like 3 alternate bids that we had asked them to go out. One was for First Parkway, one was for the Third Parkway, and then I believe the other one was what?
Dog Park.
Dog Park, thank you. We did get in, I think Clay Camp gave us very reasonable bids for First Parkway and Third Parkway. Right now, the street department mows Third Parkway. First Parkway, the property owners primarily take care of that. However, we do have one property owner that started calling us up last year and asking us that they could not manage or take care of mowing their portion of it. I guess they all work that out between the property owners up there of who mows what right across. And it's my understanding from years ago, history was that they took that over because they didn't like the frequency that the city was mowing it at the time. And so they wanted to go ahead and take care of it themselves. So the city agreed to that, and that's fine and dandy as long as everybody does that. Unfortunately, though, last year we did have one property owner, and so we did ask Clay Camp to go ahead and cut that portion of the parkway, and so that's why I asked Wayne to go ahead and do that. You could include that alternate bid if you wanted to. I asked Tony to go ahead and give at least for Third Parkway, because we do that. I think Tony was the number, remind me, it was at $2,800 a year? Your cost for Third Parkway? 24, 2,500, somewhere in that. We did get a bid from Clay Camp for 1,800 for that portion for annually. So we could include that if you wanted to go ahead and include that with this contract.
So that was going to be one of my questions, I guess, comparatively, what's here in this right now is what we've had them do in the past.
Yes, just the
No
base,
change.
base bid. The only thing that we did, like for that circumstance I had last year, I just
Right.
had Wayne call them up and say, how much is it going to cost?
I
per
remember.
cutting? Yeah.
I remember those discussions.
Yep.
And then budget-wise, and where was this in comparison to previous year?
Last year, it was at approximately $53,000 is what we paid. And I have $60,000 budgeted for this year.
Wayne, are those, when you say in that one chart you gave us cycles, is that the frequency? They will
Yes.
cut each of
So
those
30 times a
30 times a year?
growing
Yeah.
season.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we should include it because the mobilization for the park is, that's where the time is and the labor is to, to bring a lawnmower just to do that one little area where Clay Camp's always mobile and doing their
Yep,
job.
most of the sites that we have them mow for us are the ones that are, a lot of times a pain, a lot of trimming, across town, very small acreage, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And I know Chief's been using them too for a number of years and then uses Clay Camp for an additional, I think, services too. And we've had them for the last 3 years and I've been very happy with them.
So to do this, you would need an amendment to this?
You would be increasing that dollar amount by $1,800.
You would need that in the form of an amendment.
Yes, or at least on a motion, and we'll take care of the paperwork.
I would so move.
Second.
Motion by Wessels, second by Holtmeyer to amend the amount of $57,420 by $1,800?
Correct.
Okay.
For Third Park Parkway.
For Third Park Parkway. Any discussion?
That's just a motion on amending,
Third-
so just,
Third Park, not First Park.
that's just Third Park. If we, with First Parkway, we did not get a chance to reach out to those property owners.
Okay.
So what we will probably do is, if the gentleman is not able to go ahead and cut that portion of it, we'll still probably call up Clay Camp and just get their per price per
Well, the
week.
reason we called them last year was they were right there doing
That's right.
Riverview.
They do Riverview, that's
Right.
correct.
Okay. Sorry.
Nope.
Okay, what do we need?
You had a motion and a second to amend it.
That's correct.
I think you need take a vote to amend that.
Yep.
Then a vote on
And then we'll do a separate vote on the ordinance.
Ordinance, okay? All those in favor of the motion, say aye, please.
Aye.
Anti, against? Okay, motion
Yes.
passes. One no. Okay, by your vote, that motion passes.
Now the ordinance.
Now the ordinance, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the City of Washington, Missouri to accept the contractor agreement from Clay Camp Lawn and Landscape LLC for grounds maintenance services. Coulter?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Bear?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Reed?
No.
Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich.
Aye.
By your vote, ordinance 7F passes. 7G, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the City of Washington, Missouri to accept the tank contract from Caldwell Tanks, Inc. for tank construction for the South Point ground water storage tank.
Introduced by Hydrich.
Good evening, council. As you know, we've been discussing building a new ground storage tank on South Point Road for several years. It was, we had a 2006 water study done by Jacobs Engineering, and at that time, they deemed that area necessary for a storage tank. It has come time to do that. It was all driven off of growth. We had a time when the growth kind of slowed down, but now it has grown up again, and now we have all of our building on that end of town. So we're asking for your approval to proceed with the project and build a ground storage tank on South Point Road at North Goods Mill Road. Caldwell Tank came in as a low bid. The engineering bid was our estimates were $2 million. They came in at $1,869,800. They were low bid between 4 people. You have that on your paperwork. I'm not going to read it all off if you guys don't mind. But we have worked with Caldwell Tank before. They built our Enduro tank on the west end of town. They're a very good company, very, very reputable. Come highly recommended by Cochran Engineering. Dave is here from Cochran if you have any questions for him. So we're just asking for approval to proceed with that.
Kevin, are they involved at all in the renovation of our other 2 tanks that has been going on for the last year or so?
No, that was actually worldwide tanks. Those 2 tanks are complete. You approved the final payment for that earlier. I'm very pleased with those 2 tanks too. We did have to hold out $573 to do some groundwork, which they couldn't get back to do, so that wasn't a problem. No, they're not part of that. This is actually a tank manufacturer and not a tank repaint and repair company, so.
And assuming there's approval tonight, when would this start?
We will issue notice to proceed as soon as we can. We want to do that too because we're racing the cost of steel too, so you're always playing that game. So the faster we get it approved and get a notice to proceed, the faster that the tank manufacturer can contact steel companies to get the best price they can get, and it's kind of like a pricing race now, so.
And Kevin, it's a ground round tank, similar to the Clay Street tank, correct?
It will actually look more like the Enduro tank out on the far west end of town.
Okay.
It'll be almost the same height and the same diameter.
No pedestal.
No pedestal.
Right.
No.
While Kevin's up there too, 7H is for the, to go ahead and do the site work for the project as well.
Yes.
And we had 3 bids on that. The low bid being from KJU at $132,319. So that's also part of the project. I just figured since Kevin's
Might
up
as
there,
well, and I've worked
if you
with
had any
them for many
questions in
years,
regards to
so
that.
yes, very comfortable with their work too, so.
Any other discussion? Go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the city of Washington, Missouri to accept the tank contract from Caldwell Tanks, Inc. for tank construction for the South Point groundwater storage tank. Coulter?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Bear?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Reed?
Yes.
Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
By your vote, ordinance 7G passes. 7H, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the city of Washington, Missouri to accept the site work contract from KJU Inc., doing business as KJ Understall Construction for site work for the South Point groundwater storage tank.
Hydrich. Introduced by Hydrich. Questions?
I think we know what it's for.
Okay, no questions? All right, go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the city of Washington, Missouri to accept the site work contract from KJU Inc., doing business as KJ Understall Construction for site work for the South Point groundwater storage tank. Coulter?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Bear?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
By your vote, ordinance 7H is passed. 7I, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a general warranty deed by and between the city of Washington and VMH LLC.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holmeyer. Sorry.
Okay, council, in your packet, there's a cover letter that just explains what the situation here is. This is for the previously called the Earth Street Extension, now is Fox Crest, I believe, extension from Rabbit Trail over to North Crest. This transfers that property. It's donated to the city for that right-of-way. We worked with Cochran on the preliminary layout of this this bridge structure, basically, and determined that the area that you see there on that right-of-way plat is sufficient enough to get the work done. We had some drill rigs out there on that property. The property owner just wanted it all cleaned up, so it was underneath our ownership or right-of-way moving forward. The project currently sits probably 60% designed. The alignment and the grades are pretty well set for it. They just completed their geotechnical work, like I said, a couple weeks ago, and I'm just awaiting to figure out, the pier design and those type of things. So this just transfers that property to the city to move forward when the construction happens.
John, was that property in the city limits prior to this, or no? Or is that
Brought in the city limits,
Well, it was brought in when,
I don't know. When was it?
trying to think.
Stonecrest in 99, right?
No.
No, this was brought in when the
part of that farm?
assisted living.
Oh.
No,
Oh, so that's not part of that farm that's south of,
this is Clay Camp.
yeah, Clay Camp?
Oh, it's on the other side of that.
Yeah.
You're right, sorry.
Yep.
'Cause just on this side is where
It's not
that
brought in?
assisted living.
Yeah, okay, no, it's not.
No, I didn't think so. That's Franklin
Well-
County, yeah.
Is that, I don't think that's a problem. We can own the right of way, even if it's not in the city, correct? Yeah. It's not an issue.
Okay.
Thought so. Really what it was is this was gonna happen anyway. It's just we were doing some preliminary work on the property with, the owner allowed us to get over there, so we just need to get it cleaned up.
Then, when that part's done, when we finally get to that road that goes up to Vernacey, is that all of that road in city limits?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Anyone else?
So I is for the
Yeah.
permanent right-of-way,
Correct, I'm sorry.
and J is for a temporary construction easement for the same thing.
Correct, and that's just for grading work and that type of thing. I think their preliminary lot layout needed that acreage for some of their lots, so they wanted to retain that. That's why it's temporary.
Okay, 7I, please, Sherry.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a general warranty deed by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and VMH LLC. Coulter?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Bear?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich.
Aye.
By your vote, ordinance 7I passes. 7J, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a temporary construction easement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and VMH LLC.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke.
And this is the temporary construction easement that I just poorly described.
Further discussion? Sherry.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a temporary construction easement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and VMH LLC. Coulter?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Bear?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich.
Aye.
By your vote, ordinance 7J is passed. 7K, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a supplemental agreement with Cochrane for the Earth Crust Extension Improvement Project.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke.
As stated earlier, Earthcrest Extension was the previous name of this project. It will be changed to Foxcrest. However, part of our design agreement with Cochrane did not have geotechnical work included. The reason for that is we were not certain that it was going to be necessary, if it was going to be a box culvert type structure or a bridge type structure. So we did not include that. This is just a supplemental agreement to have that geotechnical work done because it will be a bridge type structure. They did some of the borings. I don't have the results back on that yet, but it ups their contract. It's kind of a pass-through cost.
It can't be a box culvert because it's too,
The grade differences are kind of at the point where it becomes cost prohibitive to have a box because the
Okay.
box gets longer, as you go up. But there's a pretty good difference in elevation from the west side to the east side. So a bridge is probably more appropriate. Well, is more appropriate, not probably.
Okay. Go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a supplemental agreement with Cochrane for the Earth Crust Extension Improvement Project. Coulter?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Wessels?
aye.
Bear?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich.
Aye.
By your vote, ordinance 7K passes. Ordinance 7L, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a development agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri, Big Elm LLC, and Terrace in Washington LLC.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke.
The third one.
Yeah.
There you go. This is another development agreement, but I will take this one off John's hands. This is a three-party agreement, but like it says in here, with the city, the developers of the apartments, which right now is Washington Terrace LLC, and then Big M LLC, who owns the property to the west. But you can see here on the slide, the project area is really for the extension of Don Avenue as an outer road from the existing point off High all the way to Pottery. This east-west connection has been identified in some location on our comp plan for another way to Pottery that as this development has continued over the years or has been planned. Since 2019, we've pretty much known this was going to be the location of it. We've just been waiting for this development to move forward. The important part of where the city gets involved is that currently the property where the apartments have right-of-way access is on South Old Pottery, not on actual Pottery Road, which you'll see a zoomed-in version here is not adequate access. So per our code, we only require them to build the the improvements to an existing public right-of-way, which is Southold Pottery. And so they actually would be permitted to build that entire development, the outer road, per their plans to that point, dump all that traffic on Southold Pottery and then to back on Pottery. And so back in 2019, we started this discussion with them about redoing that intersection, with the city taking over the cost just for the intersection while they still build the road as the developer. Now that this is moving forward, we thought it'd be best to actually get in writing with who is responsible for this. And so here you can see the revised preliminary layout of what that design will look like. So you can see where Don Avenue comes in. Southold Pottery will actually, the existing intersection will close. You'll have a new intersection here, and then the houses that are on Southold Pottery will use that new entrance point. I think we even brought this up when the zoning first went through back in 2019 as the plan forward. We haven't had necessarily additional public meetings out there, but I can imagine every homeowner out there would much rather have this situation than all those homes going on to Southold Pottery. So that, again, is just the portion that the city is responsible for per the development agreement. You can see here, that's the bubble here in red. Mouse, there we go. In purple, this is what the Washington Terrace LLC is responsible for Don Avenue. And then the last portion, Big Elm, to get that connected. I will say this has all been handshake agreement. Every party has been in favor of this. It's beneficial for all three parties, but we just wanted to get it in writing because it is assignable that if a new developer were to come in and take over from Washington Terrace LLC, which we anticipate, we know the new buyers will adhere to what was the handshake agreement back in 2019. So that's what's on your agenda tonight.
Sal?
Yes.
The existing entranceway to those few homes, that'll be eliminated, or will that remain in effect?
It will be eliminated.
Okay.
So let me go back to the zoomed in here. Yeah, so this one will close here, and there'll be a new one right here.
Okay.
So I spoke with all those property owners. It's been some time now, but they much rather obviously preferred this layout than having all that traffic go by that house. It's safer. It's kind of obvious. We did, the water department, when we extended water out to Pottery, you'll see there's 3 valves, water valves. If you drive out there, you'll see it. Those are actually set at the elevation. There's a pretty decent elevation change there, but it's manageable with maybe some small, short retaining walls, those type of things. We have $200,000 in this year's
Yes.
transportation budget to pay for this.
Sorry, I did not mention that. This has been.
It's a budget item.
It was in the budget for this year. And we wanted to get this development agreement done. It says to be done by the end of the year. That way we don't have to roll over or ask for any new money next year.
How many actually come in on Old Pottery? Is there 3 driveways I see?
There's 5 homes, I believe.
5?
Three to the east here, and those 2 that you can see on this aerial.
Is the apartment complex a sure thing now, or are they still?
Yes. I don't know I don't know if I can announce the new owner, but it is moving forward.
Oh, it's changed hands?
Yes, that's what we were waiting for. We knew it hit the market a couple months ago for a new developer to buy the plans, everything as is. And that's what we just gotten word last week, why they really wanted this on tonight's agenda.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Further questions? Nope. Okay, go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance
Sherry, 1 second. Did you want to speak, sir? Thank you.
Good evening, Council. I'm Steve Sebastian, and I'm representing the cemetery for the Presbyterian Church of Washington, which is bordering this development. And I really didn't necessarily want to speak, but as it goes, my only thing about this is that the development seems to be moving along, and yet they're not doing anything as far as protecting or bordering the neighbors. And when I say that, with the cemetery up there, all of a sudden on our north end, northeast end, mostly the east end, I guess the best way to describe it, we've got quite a cliff up there. And I have spoken with Kurt about it a number of times, and John also, in asking about some sort of a fencing, landscaping, something to put a little serenity back to the cemetery. And it seems like it constantly gets put off, and I do understand that as the development comes along, it takes quite a while to get all the pieces in the right place. But each time that there's a permit or from planning and zoning, and it goes forward, it seems to me as though they get a little bit closer without any landscape design for the neighbors, or in particular for the cemetery is what I'm directing it towards. So at any rate, I would just like that consideration, and as permits are issued, I would like to see some sort of a plan come back and at least let us know what they are actually finally going to do, and what the outcome of the development will be in relation to this cemetery. So, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
We spoke about this before, but correct me if I'm wrong, John, there's a 25-foot buffer around the cemetery for that, or is that
I
not
don't know
right?
what the number was, but they, the concern that we've had with and we've talked a great number of times, so I appreciate the patience, was really the concern for safety at first. And the plan that was approved does have a fence on the actual toe of that cut wall, basically. Every time that we would ramp up to say, hey, we got a building code requires you to have fall protection 30 inches, temporary construction fence would be put up, we'd get some rumors that things are gonna ramp up, that type of thing. So the delay is really, it's really just caused by the pause of moving forward. That's not a great answer, but that's what we've discussed. With Sal's report, I really feel like we're gonna get this taken care of here really quickly. But the problem is just right in the middle of transitioning from mass grading to actually building something. It does, on the plans, it does have a fence type system. I did not see any landscaping. I don't think there's a requirement for landscaping. So I don't know what we can require. But we could definitely pass that on to the next owner and see if they want to potentially do the right thing to put some trees, shrubs, whatever that may be. I would think that they would want to, just because getting up there and maintaining and mowing above a 10-foot cliff that doesn't provide them any value just doesn't make any sense. So put some landscaping in just to buffer it and just eliminate the issue.
So the apartment development, I want to say preliminary plat, didn't show any buffer to that cemetery.
Well, they weren't in the city limits at the time.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
But we've not revisited the plan since then either. So I don't know if I could. I don't know if there even is a requirement, to be honest.
Is it just because, is the cemetery, remind me, is the cemetery in the city limits?
Yes,
It is now.
It wasn't before.
Just a couple months ago, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that came in as R1A?
Yeah, so I'll have to look at what the.
So I think you
between
do have a
R3.
buffer yard requirement between R3 and R1A. It's minimal, but.
I guess that was my first question. What is that R3 to R1A?
I'll have to look at what it
First
is.
of all, and if
but
that's substantial, that's enough, then that's fine. But
It could be mitigated by, rather than going like just say the worst case, a chain link fence, because we don't dictate what that fence looks like. It could be mitigated by putting up an opaque vinyl fence.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that we don't overextend what's required.
Right.
That we cannot necessarily require this massive landscape plan with a berm.
No, right.
But I do think the new owners would work with whoever to make sure it's done correctly.
This site plan is going to be revised slightly, and so we will have to review and approve a new site plan for the new owners. So we'll have that, we'll have ample opportunities to have that conversation with them.
I think, Mr. Sebastian, I just
Yeah.
spoke with this before the meeting tonight, but I think as long as that the communication is open to the developer there, that we have the right.
Correct.
It may not be a requirement, but it may be the right thing to do.
And that's what we've done, and I've spoken with Steve about that
Okay.
as well, that we've tried to communicate that to, well, specifically the previous owner, Mr. Ernerstall, about it, but, he was, had other things going on at the time, so I'm not sure what conversations he's had. But the plan, as originally presented to us, met the minimum city code. Now that the cemetery's in the city limits, that changes things a little bit. However, it could be mitigated by just putting up a fence, an opaque fence. So just so we know, we set those expectations.
Right.
anything above and beyond that would be because they want to be good neighbors, which I am confident they will be. Is that,
Yes, thank you.
Other comments? Sherry?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a development agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri, Big Elm LLC, and Terrace and Washington LLC. Coulter?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Bear?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich.
Aye.
By your vote, ordinance 7L is passed. 7M, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a subdivision and special district participation form by and between the City of Washington, Missouri, Teva, Allergen, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart.
Holtmar.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
I will pass this on to Mark. Basically, I asked him for the verbiage to go ahead and include, but it's my understanding we have, by a certain date, we have to go ahead and pass this in order to be eligible for the settlement. Correct, Mark?
Right, the 18th of April, I think, is the deadline. This allows you to participate in the opioid litigation settlements that have been negotiated with these 5 or 6 entities. If you don't pass this, you don't approve this, you don't participate. At this point, nobody knows exactly what the number is going to be because they don't know how many are going to participate. Once that's determined, and again, I think that deadline is the 18th of April. Once that's determined, then they'll do a calculation and they'll figure out how much everybody is entitled to. But you have to do this as a preliminary step to be able to participate in the settlement.
Mark, are those, once this happens, will those funds be earmarked for any purpose?
I don't recall. There were some settlements where 85% of the funding had to go for some opioid mitigation.
I'd seen something.
I don't recall whether these are part of that same scenario or not. It's probable that they are, but I just couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a subdivision and special district participation form by and between the City of Washington, Missouri, Teva, Allergen, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart. Coulter?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Bear?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Reed?
Yes.
Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich.
Aye.
By your vote, ordinance 7M passes. Last one, 7N, please.
An ordinance approving a boundary adjustment for the meadow at Coke Farm, Plat 3, in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Patke.
Introduced by Patke.
All right, this is a very simple boundary adjustment. So actually, the meadow at Coke Farm was a plat you just approved a couple weeks ago. And I think they have now sold one of these houses on lot either 18R or 37. You can see the old property line was right here, and they're wanting to move it diagonally so it can have, each lot will be more equal in size. And the minimum lot size here is 7,500, so they're well above it on both. Pretty simple and straightforward. They're moving the easements with it, but there's no existing utilities in between there, so we recommend approval.
Is that road already connected to Sturman?
I think half of it.
nope, no,
Oh, it's,
the whole thing.
the whole thing's done?
It's not open.
To Beaker.
Beaker Road.
Beaker, yeah.
Yeah.
It is not open.
Yeah.
No, we're just waiting for good breaks.
I drove it.
Don't listen to him.
Thank you.
Further discussion. Sherry.
An ordinance approving a boundary adjustment for the meadow at Coke Farm, Plat 3, in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Coulter?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Bear?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Reed?
Yes.
Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich.
Aye.
By your vote, ordinance 7N is passed.
Commission, committee, and board reports. Preliminary plat approval, WW Industrial Park, Plat 3.
Okay, my last thing of the night. Before you tonight is a preliminary plat approval for Plat 3 of the W&W Industrial Park Drive plat. You can see here, this is just west of the ZX gas station currently and where the current car wash is. You can see how long the lot is. It actually does have access to Bluff Road. The new owners of I think the proposed owners of the car wash are wanting to plat this off to break off a lot in the back. And you can see what this plat looks like here. This did go to planning and zoning last week, and staff has reviewed it. It does meet the requirements of our city code saying it has to have at least 50 foot of right-of-way frontage because it does have access to Bluff Road. It doesn't currently utilize that access, but it does meet the intent of our code by saying it has right-of-way frontage. You can see on this existing plat, there is a 20-foot ingress-egress easement. This went to site plan. Our fire department liaison reviewed it, as well as Planning and Zoning Commission, and we recommended approval, and they voted to approve this under the condition that this 20-foot ingress-egress easement just be amended to 26 feet, because that is the width of a fire lane. Other than that, we recommend approval.
Sal, where does the culvert go across on Bluff Road?
Go back. Oh.
You got it on here?
Yeah, you see that little notch out going to the west on Bluff
This
Road?
is not working.
Yeah, I can't, it's hard to.
Right here.
Right there, yep.
Oh, okay, that's, okay.
Yeah, the right-of-way was extended when that culvert was replaced.
All right. So in order to utilize this back lot, they'll have to come off of Bluff Road.
No, they will come off of WW. There is an existing, this is ingress egress that exists today. We're just gonna have to, per the new code, I don't know, that was probably 20-foot recorded years ago. Per the new fire code, it's 26 feet. So we're just gonna have them widen that to 26 to access the back lot.
Okay.
They have right-of-way access to Bluff Road, but it's paper access, it's not viable. So they have an access agreement through their neighbor for viable access.
Okay.
Does that,
Yeah, I understand now. I just wondered why that was just a fire lane, not,
Yeah.
but it's actually gonna be the egress for the property.
Yep. And I do know the applicant with Jack Flash is here tonight and sat through the whole meeting if you have any questions for him. So.
give me something.
And the final site plan will have the 26-foot easement extension, sorry. So when we turn into final plat, it will have the 26-foot easement extension. I know Cochran's working on that now.
Okay.
So the property that, I guess your proposed property for here, does it include the road? Or I think the road is on the property next to it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so
Just by the way the stakes are out there.
So we're under contract to buy the ZX station, and then we're getting ready to be under contract with Patriot Towing to buy the other lot, but just the front portion, the 175 feet of it, where the car wash sits, and they keep the remaining gravel lot in the back there. Then there's that grass property there owned by Onyx Properties, which I believe is the Reekers.
Right.
They have an agreement there with the easement, so Matt from Patriot Towing would be able to keep using that easement road to get to his gravel lot for his trucks.
So I guess my question was, the easement road is actually on Reeker's property to get back there, not on.
It's on both. It's on
Okay.
both.
All right. You know what I'm saying? If we're gonna go from 20 to 26, we're doing it on not just their property, but also on Reeker's property.
Well, the 6 feet will be widened on there.
On theirs.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
you
that was
don't-
my
You
question.
don't need that third party.
Okay, that's,
Do not need that.
there was my question. Sorry, I went
Okay.
about the wrong way, but
Yeah,
yeah, that's,
we'll take 6 feet our way.
okay, all right.
There you go.
I should have asked you when you came up, what's your name? I'm sorry.
James Fortner.
James, thank you.
Thank you.
Other discussion, guys? I'll accept a motion, I guess.
So moved.
Motion by Patke, second by Hopmeyer to accept into the minutes. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. By your vote, it's accepted.
Pedestrians in and around right-of-way.
Okay, council, in your packets, you have a letter from Sergeant Grissom. It looks like he bailed on me, so I'll do my best. So if you recall, a while back, some of you asked staff to look into, lack of a better term, panhandling ordinances. we did that, consulted with Mr. Piontek. We took it to traffic committee. There was lots of discussion then about it. And then ultimately came up with some concerns about moving forward with any sort of ordinance related to that. In the letter, if you've had a chance to read that, Mike does point out some concerns that Mr. Piontek had. I don't want to speak for him, but I think it was just the challenge of enforcing it and potentially having some difficulties if we, whether or not we can arrest an indigent person and for fail to pay fines and things of that nature. It becomes very difficult, I guess. Mark, I don't know if you want to expand on that a bit, but.
Yeah, I mean, there's some real practical problems with trying to enforce this. If you issue, you're not going to arrest people for doing this, so you're going to issue a traffic ticket, or basically a traffic ticket to them. They're going to show up in the courthouse. They're going to get assessed a fine and some court costs. If they're indigent and they can't afford to pay the fines and court costs, then there's no real penalty for not being able to pay your fines. So you can issue a whole load of tickets, and basically they're not going to mean anything because the people don't have the money in the first place to pay the tickets. So I'm not sure what you're gaining by trying to prohibit this conduct when there's very limited ability to enforce it.
We did ask, since there was not, this was requested to be looked at the Traffic Commission, that the Traffic Committee give their recommendation in writing, basically, which is why you got the letter within your packet.
Well, to be presumptuous that the people don't have any money to pay for a ticket is a little bit much, because they're on washmo.com and their iPhones asking for food. So somehow they have money to do something, you know what I mean? So I understand we pile up traffic tickets and no one knows to pay anything, but it's also presumptuous to think that nobody would, I guess, in my opinion. I mean, because it doesn't fix the problem. All it does is say we can't enforce the problem, or we can't enforce that violators.
I guess I would ask, how big a problem is it?
Unfortunately, I think it's bigger than we think.
Yes. I can tell you, I've gotten calls from many businesses asking us as a council to do something about this.
I'm not saying you have to issue the ticket every time it comes around, because I understand the predicament we're in. But if a situation were to come up and a ticket should be issued, whether they get paid or not, at least we have some kind of enforcement here. I realize that they're not going to pay, that it may be a useless deal, but it could come in to effect. It could be something at some point, at least a deterrent.
But how much of a deterrent is it when they know they're going to get a ticket that they're never going to pay?
I don't know where to go from here. I'm up for suggestions, and I sat in on that as well, but, what do you do?
I mean, if they're on private property.
Agreed.
Then they're trespassing.
Yes.
Then they can be arrested and hauled away for trespassing. But
right now we have
they're
nothing.
just standing in the right of way.
One of the things we discussed at the traffic meeting was that, other communities do have ordinance so far, or they're trying to come up with them. So when we look at them, we try to figure out, how would you word this? Where and in what situations? And the question came up with the possibility of challenge. You get into the whole First Amendment, all that stuff goes on. And so until somebody actually puts one in place, and I think it makes its way through a couple challenges, I don't think we have an example to look at to put one in. When we had the last municipal conference, the state conference, I was going around talking to different people who had them, and nobody had anything that they yet felt was going to fly. So I think like, O'Fallon, I believe, has something they're trying out. I think until something like that gets challenged and tested and we find out what works and what doesn't, we didn't know what kind of ordinance to present to council.
Correct. Guys, I don't have a problem, leading when it's appropriate, but I think in this one, it's probably best to keep our eyes and ears open and see what other people does and let it wend its way through the court system, because it's going to happen. It's going to go into court and be contested. And for us to risk money, I just don't think that's right for this issue.
But somehow we got to keep track of, in the same amount, Your Honor, that the money we would spend in a court system against that and what it would cost the city, or on the other hand, what are they deterring from businesses in town, and what's that costing us?
Good point.
So as one is one way, one is the other. I mean, it's just, again, those people aren't coming here and speaking in front of us and saying it's an issue in front of this building in my business, because that's not going to happen. It's those people who, their kids are playing in their backyards and they see 5 or 6 people in the creek yelling at their kids obscenities that we can't have in our town. And it's getting to be more and more. And you don't see them because as we drove here tonight, they're underneath of the bridge. They're along, they're not walking on Jefferson Street waving to you as a deterrent. They're hiding. They're keeping to themselves to a certain extent. And then when it does become a problem, then we just say, well, we can't prosecute them. So, I see it as I drive to St. Louis every day, and the junk and the trash it's made along Hampton and everything else along 44 and 55. I mean, there's towns being set up with tents and pallets right now, and there's got to be a deterrent here to do that. And I know we talked about people being in front of businesses. It's the same person standing in front of the same business every single day being asked to move on and knowing there's no enforcement behind it. So my whole thing the whole time here was to give the police department a backbone to say, you're now trespassing, or you're now against an ordinance of violating an ordinance, and you must move on and you must stay away. I understand we don't have all the answers, but I don't want to just sweep it on the rug and think the problem's going to take care of itself, because the problem's going to continue to get worse instead of getting better.
Well,
If we want to look at what other towns have done, then again, we can't wait 6 months or a year and think we're going to do what O'Fallon did. We got to do what's right for Washington and know what's right for our businesses and our citizens of town.
and Jeff, we have looked at what a couple of the other cities in the area have done in St. Charles County and in St. Louis County. Some of that is in litigation now, it's in the courts. I continue to kind of track those and see where they're at and see what ultimately comes out of it, so that there is something that gives us some guidance on what we can and can't do. But at least at this point, I'm not prepared to say that anything anybody else has done would pass a challenge.
I'd suggest we keep it ongoing with our traffic, we keep it on the agenda, and then if Mark can continue to follow those cases that are going on, to give us some direction. But we could keep it on the agenda. I mean, it's not something we have to just drop and, go away from. It's just that at this time, we didn't feel like we had a good example to bring you in the way of a ordinance.
Jim, I know you're part of that traffic committee, but you're the point person. You and your staff, you and the police officers are the point people for all this.
Yes.
You have a better feel for this issue. I'm all ears.
Mr. Packey's right, it is an issue. We continue to enforce what ordinances and violations we can enforce, particularly with trespassing. Some businesses are reluctant to prosecute, so that makes it difficult for us. So it's a matter of, in my opinion, cooperation between citizens, businesses, and the police department and the city to find a resolution. I don't know what that resolution is at this point. This particular item we looked at was specifically for soliciting in the right-of-way or in the streets. So that's very limited, and I think that's how some of those ordinances were passed in other municipalities, because they're targeted for that specific reason. It's safety related. You know, having people in the roadways is unsafe. But when you get into, you know, just soliciting in general, you run into that Constitution conflict. So.
Right. It's not easy.
Well, again, I mean, on my soapbox for it, but I think, if, like Mr. Wessel said, it continues to be an item on the traffic committee, and it's an ongoing discussion, and not to think that it's just going to go away on its own. It's here, and there's got to be a way, there's got to be something to do about it. We're going to end up in a worse situation than we already are. So that's all I ask. We keep it in the conversation in traffic, so thank you.
I'll accept a motion to accept it in the minutes, if anyone would like.
Make a motion.
Motion by Holtmeyer,
I'll second it.
second by Briggs. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you, guys.
Mayor's report?
Sad news, Don Northington has passed away. Yeah. Good friend, lion of our city, one of the most important members of, or persons involved with the school district, just, and a good man, a really good man. So, keep him in your thoughts and prayers, as well as Officer Adam Sullentrop. I guess he's still in an induced coma. I don't know. But keep him in your hearts and prayers, gang. That's all I ask. Thank you.
City Administrator's report?
The good news, no need for executive session. So, just a couple items, though. We are putting together a recruitment package for the replacement of Public Works Director. I'm working with Shauna and the mayor to go ahead and put that package together. We'll be trying to get that out this week. We're also conducting interviews for building inspector midweek, hopefully, or putting a short list together for those, hopefully to get that position filled. We do have some good candidates. We're hopeful this time, so we're happy about that. And one final item is that just Sal had worked with our consultants, H3 Studios, to go ahead and set up a public meeting again with the general public on the comprehensive plan. A preliminary draft of a future land use map and some other maps were distributed amongst the steering committee members at their last meeting, and I think that was, 2 weeks ago? Or and so, however, there's some things that we wanted to discuss with the consultant before we brought it out to the public, so look for that future meeting. We'll keep posted on social media when that meeting does open up for the general public, but hopefully sometime in April rather than, because I think we were originally scheduled to have it in March, but we needed a few weeks to go ahead and meet with them and make some changes. So, or at least look at some possibilities for changes on those documents. So that's all I have.
Council comments?
I have just to echo on Don Northington, too. I talked to him 2 days ago at the hospital, and I asked him, I said, what are you doing in here? You need to get out of here. And he said, you know, one day I feel like I'm going to die. He says, then the next day I realize I didn't. And then 2 days later, he actually did. So that's it. But the other thing I wanted to say was I'm really pleased with the work that's been done out at Phoenix Park. It really looks good. The landscaping around the tennis courts, and then the fence, of course, we finally got that one in on the playground. But it really looks nice right now. They did a good job. And I'm sure the subdivision people are happy because Mr. Honorstall put up 2 large signs. Remember, they were in here that one night saying, we don't have a sign even saying this. He put up 2 big ones, one on each side of the road. So I'm sure they're happy now. So.
I'd also like to thank John publicly for all he did for the city for all these years. It's been a good asset, and good luck in your future.
Thank you very much.
Quitter.
And you got to find your replacement.
He's got one more meeting for abuse. So just remember that.
I thought he was just kidding when he.
And in the spirit of hopping on the back of the mayor's comments, I think the fire department is putting together a nice little benefit breakfast, April 1st.
Yeah.
No. Sorry. At the fire department.
The fire department auxiliary is doing it. We're assisting the auxiliary.
My
And it's-
apologies to the auxiliary, yes.
Yes, and it's a joint with the police department. They're helping as well. So they're actually planning, they have a planning meeting this evening. So yeah, we'll be planning for something large. Apparently KSTK picked up the story the other night.
I saw it.
Channel 5, yeah, KSTK. And so, yeah, the Easter Bunny will be there as well, so.
Where's it at, Tim?
Fire headquarters, will be upstairs at headquarters, so we're turning the bays into a big breakfast area. And working with some other, it's a community event, honestly. We've gotten, so far, they've got some significant community support and all we can do to help the guys in blue, so, guys and gals, so.
Is
thank
this
you.
for Officer Zolentrop?
Yeah, all the benefits go to the officers. Yep, it's all being done through the auxiliary, and it's already been underwritten. We've got a number of sponsors. They've got a number of sponsors. I've gotten kind of hooked into it because my wife apparently is a chair, but it's all 100% underwritten, and the ladies are running with it and doing well. So I look forward to a good event.
Thanks.
Good job.
Thank you.
What's that date again?
April 1st.
April 1st.
April Fool's Day.
Fire Station 4.
1.
April Fools. April Fools, come on, send them to the wrong place.
I jump at 4.
I will say thank you just to, again, condolences to the Northington family and to the Officer Griffith's family. The outpouring yesterday at Owensville High School and through the towns of Owensville, Rosebud, et cetera, and I know our fire department ladder truck was there to support that, so appreciate that happening. So I think we all here in Washington send our condolences to those officers from Herman.
Absolutely.
And beyond the community, so said. Thanks.
Amen. 7:30 a.m., was that when it is, Tim, on the 1st? Sorry to get you up. You don't have to get up. It's the yes or no.
I think it's 7:30 to 11, I think is what it is.
Okay.
And there's also a T-shirt thing they're doing through MVP Legacy's also doing a fundraiser through there. Those shirts can be picked up that morning at the fire station as well.
Cool.
7:30 to 10:30. I looked up the flyer.
Thank you. I don't have a flyer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Chamber banquet this Saturday?
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
correct? Yeah. Are you emceeing?
Not emceeing, no.
Auctioneering.
Auctioneering.
No, yes.
I was
did
hoping you were
remember that
MC.
this year. That's worth the price of admission, let me tell you.
Vince Jr.
Right, thanks, Joe.
Whoa.
Somehow I've inherited all those jobs that he did around town. Right. Yeah. It's hard to say no.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
All by himself.
It's not a bad thing.
Well, it's not fun.
I'll make the motion if we're ready for it.
Yeah. Motion
Move
by
to adjourn.
Bear, second by Patke. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Have a good evening. Yep. You too. Do my very best.